This is a rather dark poem, so I was really hesitant to read it. I did want to share something more. I do write poems about enlightenment, but this one's about death. So here we are again. And I do have an antidote poem that I found. I had to go out and see if I could find one at the end. It's called The Bear Tree. When she could walk easily up the mountain, she would have her picture taken on her birthday in front of the bear tree, sometimes pointing 6 feet above her head to the scars on the tree where the male had marked his territory, where the pine sap ran down the side, busy with ants. Now she checked her medical bag for needles and syringes she would need, added insulin from the freezer, left behind her books from college days, the closet overstuffed with designer clothes, all the pictures of kids, grandkids, the Pope, and most of the pictures that she had painted. Kept the Madonna and the abstract one that looked like a knife falling in grass, drawing blood. Her husband, retired doctor, out walking the dog. She turned the ignition, drove away from him and home in some tears. They did not want to be alone. Then doubled back to the mountain, the one with the bear tree. Better to be eaten by the bears, she had decided, than to live the diminishing half-lives of those doomed to dialysis, the pain of implantation with no anesthesia, and her daughters, the ones she would have died for, silent when her husband asked for kidney donations. All that had wiped out most memories of joy, but not the bear tree. She knew where to hide the van, in the gully's eternity of twilight. Carrying the small bag, she struggled alone, breathing very hard, up the mountain, reached the clearing in the twilight, removed her clothes as the cold set in, and the full moon rose directly in front of her. Gave herself a shot with trembling hands from the bag, ate a sandwich, facing the spot where her brother many years ago found a grisly print the size of a large serving plate. Hung a cast of it in the cabin a few miles up the road, next to the creek full of fish, with its scrub willows and paintbrush blossom borders, and wild onions the bears like to eat. She sat down and waited and tried to remember names of constellations that she saw. Pleiades, there they were, deep in the mountain summer night, before her birthday, as the cold took root. She did not look much at her white and perfect body, the one she was about to leave behind, stretched out with childbirth. She did not hesitate as she reached again for the bag, pulled out a scalpel, cut around the implant while looking at the moon and the sky and the fingers of pines and the way that their smell reached past that memory of antiseptic odors, and the cloth that they had placed over her face during the implant, over her artist's eyes, still didn't know why, how it increased the pain and terror. She pulled it out, the whole apparatus, a mass of blood, threw it on the clothes, bleeding through the cast-off garments into the dark, invisible soil. Better to be eaten by the bears than to have her voice stolen several times a week. When had she been able to shout last? Now it was just a whisper, when she spoke at all. She found the tranquilizers, too, hidden in the bag, a month ago and had hidden them in turn when he wasn't watching. So, they came a little after midnight and carried her away. That angry old woman, bleeding, shivering, nearly comatose, to their caves, where buffalo hides were hidden by the vision keepers, placed her between the hides, sat against her for healing that went beyond machines and medicine. When she awoke, having forgotten fear, they brought her what they knew: fish, honey, berries, herbs to restore balance and stanch wounds. She lived with them. How, given her prognosis, she did not know. Given up for dead. Or was she really dead in this and afterlife? For they found the van and the bloody clothes by the bear tree and the implant. She would sit with the bears on the cliff, overlooking the creek valley, Twin Buttes to the north, sage filling all of summer, eating fish, kinnikinick berries, plantain, wild roots. In winter she wore buffalo hides and ate the stores she had, and grew thin, went fishing alone on ice-encrusted mornings while they slept. In spring she startled the owner of a clear-cutting operation, that wild, ancient, naked female apparition with her bear family, looking at him through rage-shot eyes from under thin, matted, serpentine hair, blowing in the brisk wind, mountain Medusa. He moved his operation to the lower valleys where he might be seen and confronted, but he felt safer. He told no one. Years later, when she died, the bears left her, uneaten, between two hides in the cave, which had small openings in the ceiling that seemed to those above to sing an audible song of release, and to those below a window to a universe that always is alive if you are paying attention. That is where I found her spirit, that glint of pearly skull in the regions far below thought, that pearl deep in the sacred mountain that had nothing to do with the bits and pieces of a fierce mother I once knew, lost gradually, mind, body, and soul, to dialysis, who defied all enemies of freedom, McCarthyism, racism, capitalism, anti-environmentalism, who stood alone in her convictions, who always had her mind, who always had her heart, who always bore that love, which I am only now beginning to return.